The security industry is currently stuck in a massive identity trap. For years, we've poured resources into proving exactly who is calling, but this hyper-focus on identity verification has completely blinded us to what they're actually doing once they're inside.
You proved who they were, but you forgot to ask what they were actually doing. That right there, that is the core problem we're facing today. A 100% authorized, fully verified badge can still carry a malicious payload right through your front door. We've been so busy building better badges that we completely forgot to check what people are carrying when they badge in.
So, why does the word authorized no longer actually mean safe? Look at this explainer as an urgent intelligence brief on why robust identity verification is totally failing to stop authorized credentials from executing malicious intent. The truth is, attackers have moved on. They aren't trying to break your authentication anymore. They're literally using your perfectly valid authentication against you. To really grasp this shift, let's put two major hacks from July 2026 side by side, the AsyncAPI incident and the GhostApproval incident. On one hand, we've got a hijacked CI/CD pipeline. On the other, a lying UI box tricking human approvals. And you know what is terrifyingly common about both of these disclosures? No stolen keys, no broken authentication, just trusted identities executing malicious intent. Let's break down exactly how this happens.
Let's trace how this builds, starting with the AsyncAPI compromise. Back in April 2026, a pound request vulnerability was flagged via a proof of concept. Fast forward to July 14th, an attacker pushes a malicious commit to an unprotected pre-release branch. And what happens next? Within 90 minutes, the project's own legitimate CI/CD pipeline publishes 5 poison packages. Within 30 minutes of that, Step Security detects that those packages contain the miasma rat payload, which is a remote access Trojan. Think about that. An already privileged pipeline was literally tricked into doing the attacker's job for them.
Now, the reality check here is absolutely staggering. 0 stolen NPM tokens, 0 compromised maintainer accounts. The packages actually had 100% valid NPM OIDC provenance signing. The credential itself was never the weak point here. The system blindly trusted the pipeline's identity over the payload's integrity. Because the pipeline was fully authorized to publish, the system didn't even question the malicious payload it was instructed to carry.
Pivoting over to our second example, let's trace the GhostApproval attack path. Step 1. A malicious repository plants a symlink, basically a file pointing to another location, and disguises it as an ordinary project settings file. Step 2. A developer gets a prompt in their AI coding assistant and, naturally wanting to get on with their day and clear the notification, they approve what looks like a harmless file edit in the UI. Step 3. The agent resolves that symlink and silently overwrites a sensitive SSH key underneath. Human approvals are being weaponized because the UI is literally lying to the developer about a file's true destination.
Forrester Research actually hit the nail on the head regarding this paradigm shift at Identiverse 2026. They noted that authorization is where the greatest paradigm shift is happening. Delegation to a uniquely identified agent, and not impersonation, is the recommended design pattern. This pretty much confirms that authorization, verifying what an identity is actually allowed to do right now, is the unresolved frontier of agentic and CI/CD security.
Section 1. The structural flaw, the who versus what gap.
The harsh reality is that modern security tools fail because they only operate after a standing, full-blast radius credential is already sitting right there exposed in the execution environment. If we break down the typical security stack, the blind spots become pretty obvious. You've got your discovery tools mapping existing credentials, but they only find the real credential after it's created. Governance tools enforce policies, sure, but they're just defining permissions for a real credential. Detection watches what that real credential does, and response revokes access only after the credential is misused. They all fundamentally miss the upstream threat. By the time these layers kick in, the attacker already has their hands on the keys.
To actually fix this, we have to look upstream to the design layer. This is the architectural layer that determines what a credential looks like and what it can access before it ever enters an execution context. And this is really the only structural fix, because if a real, long-lived, full-blast radius credential never enters an agent's execution context to begin with, well, the attacker has absolutely nothing to steal and nothing to weaponize.
Which brings us to a brand new mandate. Stop trusting the badge. Start verifying the action. If you want to bound the power of authorized sessions, whether we're talking about a CI/CD pipeline or an AI agent, you have to verify the integrity of the action itself, not just the identity presenting it.
Section 2. Verifying the action, the DevFortress solution.
So how do we actually close this intent gap? While looking at DevFortress's publicly stated capabilities, we see things like agent scope enforcement, which strictly bounds what an agent can touch. Multi-identity attestation ensures a payload is directly tied to the specific caller identity that generated it. Then you have API key and payload protection, featuring alias indirection for outbound keys, which means the real credential is never exposed in the execution context, all backed by zero downtime key rotation. These outcomes guarantee that even if an attacker tricks the system, the blast radius is structurally contained.
The sheer operational speed of this protection relies on a closed-loop automated response. Step 1, detection of a scope violation. Step 2, containment of the agent in under 2 seconds. Step 3, the audit trail is preserved for forensic review. This sub-2-second automated response loop stops anomalies instantly, completely removing human-in-the-loop latency from the equation. Because let's face it, if you have to wait for a human to manually review an alert, you've already lost.
To sum up this shift, the old paradigm relied heavily on standing, full-scope credentials exposed directly in your execution environments. It basically handed over the keys to the kingdom. The DevFortress paradigm, on the other hand, uses scoped aliases that resolve to real access only at the authorized execution boundary. You're bounding the blast radius by design.
If you're looking to implement this design layer in your own stack, you'll definitely want to grab the DevFortress Master Edition textbook at devfortress.net. It's got all the details on building out this architecture for your specific organization.
I'm going to leave you to reflect on this final, pretty provocative question. If your pipeline's identity is hijacked in the next 5 minutes, what is verifying your payload? If the answer is nothing, you are completely exposed to the intent gap. It's time to start verifying the action.